Welcome to the National Afro-Vegan Virtual Conference, Vegan Wellness Q&A. This conference features 24 presenters and 19 sessions that you can watch on demand for free. Thank you to our sponsors, Better Food Foundation, Veg Fund, and A Well-Fed World. Support Afro-Vegan Society's work by making a donation today.
Today we are going to be talking with a very, very special guest. We are going to be talking about vegan wellness, and that is going to incorporate the full gamut of wellness from mind, body, and spirit. And we are so fortunate to have with us the Afro-Vegan Society Director of Marketing, Jamila Alfred. We are so happy to have Jamila coming on and talking with us about vegan wellness in a question and answer format. And so I just wanted to go ahead and read Jamila's bio and then get right into her Q&A. Jamila Anahata is a passionate activist, healer, and wellness content creator in the DC, Baltimore area. She is the proud multimedia marketing director for Afro-Vegan Society, where she engages with her community about plant-based living and social justice. Her favorite topics to touch on are shadow work, social justice, and spirituality, and how it all affects her life as a Black femme. She provides insight and motivation for Black queer folks to decolonize through subconscious mind programming tactics, which includes meditation, affirmations, positive self-talk, and more. In her free time, she likes to read tarot cards, cook vegan comfort food, practice self-mastery, rock out to metal, and lift heavy at the gym. Thank you so much, Jamila, for taking the time to do this Q&A. And I'm sure there are lots and lots of people who are so excited to, be hearing what you have to say. I know that you have a following of folks who definitely count on you and rely on you for really helpful and useful information for their own lives. And so I'm just so pleased to be able to have this or take a part in this Q&A with you today.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
So, Jamila, what does mind, body, and spirit mean to you?
So to me, mind, body, and spirit is the connection to the physical world and to consciousness. So mind is about how you perceive our experience here on this plane. Our body is how we carry out our experience. And the spirit is basically the driving force behind our experience. We don't know why we're in this body, but something does beyond this physical plane. So when we meld all those things together, we live a life of authenticity, joy, and just serving our own purpose. And that also falls into like holistics, where you want to take care of yourself in every way possible. Because when you're thinking clearly and you're, feeding your body the right things, you're automatically going to be able to listen to your intuition a lot more. So when you're listening to your intuition, you are basically doing what you're supposed to do. Our intuition helps guide us to our purpose. So when you put together the mind, body, and spirit, you're literally just doing what you're here to do.
So how does veganism connect with that? Or can veganism connect with mind, body, and spirit?
Absolutely. Veganism is basically a way for us to acknowledge that there's something going on that we have not been able to pinpoint. So we've been conditioned to believe our whole lives that, we need animals for sustenance, we need them for good cooking, So when we acknowledge animal abuse, the oppression towards animals, it opens our world up to a whole different, not even just culture, just different ideologies. We're able to think more compassionately. So not only is veganism very necessary for our mind, we change our morals, our values. We're able to think about other beings other than ourselves, not even just humans, just non-human animals as well, insects, trees, all those types of things. Also eating more plant-based foods, vegan foods in general, we're automatically going to be eating less sodium, less saturated fats, there's way less cholesterol, and there's not going to be acidic protein. So obviously that's going to make us a little bit healthier in some way. We're not going to say that all vegan food is healthy, but at the same time though, we're is going to be improving our health in some way. And when our bodies are feeling good, our mind feels good. It gives you more clarity to think about, you know, what you want personally, or putting ourselves in others' shoes. We know that, you know, with that clarity, we know that animals don't want to be in that position. And because of that, you automatically and naturally move towards a lifestyle of self-compassion and compassion towards others. And once you have that, you're automatically connecting to consciousness. You're seeing the connection between all beings. You're seeing that you're no different than a non-human animal, regardless of the physical, you know, the scientific term of being an animal. Veganism is a really good, direct way to lead a lifestyle of wellness or begin a wellness journey.
So these connections that you're talking about making, how have they impacted your personal wellness journey?
All right. So I would say that veganism, going into veganism, really just started my wellness journey in general. When I went vegan, I originally went as a health kick. I just wanted to feel better. I didn't feel good. I had health issues. I wasn't satisfied with how I was living. And because of that, I looked at my diet. I looked at what I was eating. And the more research I did, the more I saw that what I was putting into my body, namely animal-based foods, was messing me up. I had to make some changes. And that began me eating more vegetables, becoming more plant-based, eliminating animals from my diet, cooking for myself. That was a great thing. And literally right afterwards, I learned about yoga. I learned about African spirituality. I even learned more about food access work and social justice, all those types of things that created a fullness of my experience. I didn't really just think of things from my perspective. I tried to look at it of everybody's perspective. And that made me want to be more compassionate once again towards myself. So going vegan, I realized that I wasn't treating myself well. I finally treated myself well and learned about how I could treat others well. I developed a yoga practice. I started drinking more smoothies. I started meditating more. I started trying to get into contact with my ancestors, listening to my intuition, exercising, all those types of things that created that fullness of my experience and has developed the wellness routine that I even have today.
Awesome. I think that we could all stand to have a wellness routine in our
Oh,
lives. I know I could.
Oh, yes.
So just getting a little bit into talking about the subconscious mind, why is it important to program the subconscious mind?
So it is extremely important to program the subconscious mind because it has been programmed for us. We have been, as soon as we popped out the womb, we've been conditioned to believe certain things that are actually lies. Once again, we've been taught to believe that eating animals is necessary for us for survival. And we can see right here that is not true. We've been taught to believe that women, femmes, queer folk, genderqueer folk are inferior, which we can see is not true. We've been even taught that Black people, you know, as Black people, as a family, we are garbage, we are criminals, we're up to no good, and we all know that is not true. So when we try to read in between the lines and unlearn the conditioning we've been plagued with for generations, we can finally, it sounds really corny at this time, it's like a keyword or buzzword, but we can take our power back. You know, if we have our own minds for ourselves, we can really do anything. You know, not everything's accessible to everyone and people don't always have the resources to, but if we have a certain mindset, we will do what we can to get to where we want to go. So programming the subconscious mind is basically rewiring your brain to work in your favor. We're no longer seeing it as our enemy. We're seeing it as something that can help us perceive things in a better way. And not only that, but to see ourselves in a better way. It helps you with our self-image. It helps us with how we see the world. And it helps us deal with challenges better in the future when we come into them.
Okay. Now, I guess at this point, I want to, you know, now that I know about why it's important to program the subconscious mind, I guess my next question is, how does one program the subconscious mind?
It's a very good question, and I have a slide for that. Wonderful. Okay, so these are my favorite ways to program the subconscious mind, a lot of what I like to tell people. So number one is meditation. So I understand that meditation is very hard for people, but they have to remember, everyone has to remember, we are not doing this to be perfect. We're not just sitting on the Himalayas, listening to binaural beats. It's not always perfect like that. We just have to be in as quiet of a room as possible, just trying to get centered and breathe deeply with our eyes closed. So that is a way for us to absorb the present moment and for us to center ourselves by tapping into the subconscious mind. So that could be any past pain that we're feeling, any memories that we like to suppress, or just any types of thoughts or feelings that are popping up that we need to shine a light on. Number two is one of my favorites, and it's affirmations. So affirmations have been more of a hot topic for the past 2 years. We always like to speak things into existence, but it's more than that. And it's also more than our intention. We really are speaking things in the present moment so that we can finally align with them. We are going to align with things once we truly believe it. So affirmations is repeatedly recite powerful words or sentences for positive self-talk and actualization. And we are really able to actualize things through our words. Words are more powerful than we think. And then on top of that, it'll help us with our self-image. It'll help us with how we see others. And it'll help us be motivated to carry out our purpose. And number three, visualization. That's pretty simple, but really it's just clearly imagining your desires as if they were right in front of you. So really, in my opinion, it's just daydreaming or just dreaming. We want to have a full picture of what it looks like where we want to go. So if somebody wants to be a doctor, they will literally most likely close their eyes, preferably through meditation, and picture themselves with a white lab coat on, with a stethoscope. They would have to not only picture it in their mind, they would have to see what it tastes like, see what it feels like, see what it sounds like, almost as if it's happening right now. And that is a great way to align with our desires. And number four, the one thing I always talk about on my platform is shadow work. And shadow work seems like a really scary thing just because we're always conditioned to believe that darkness is bad. I'll get to that later. But shadow work, for that, you would have to just resolve past trauma to unlearn shame and integrate your shadow self. And once again, I'll get to that in a second. But we run away from our shadow selves because we've been taught to believe that it's a bad thing. We've been taught to feel guilty when we have quote unquote dark desires or deep dark emotions or things like that, when really it's just a part of ourselves. So through that process, you're just making what's hidden not hidden.
Wow. Yeah, I have been having questions about this concept of shadow work for a while now because I get on the internet, on social media too, and I see lots of folks talking about shadow work and not really going into detail about what that is. So thank you so much for giving a basic explanation, and then I'm actually looking forward to you talking more about that. But I wanted to talk about this programming of the subconscious mind and how that might help somebody who is struggling with transitioning to vegan. So you gave sort of an example of somebody who wants to become a doctor. Let's flip it and talk about somebody who has decided, you know what, I want to go vegan, but I'm having all these challenges with it. How could programming the subconscious mind help that person?
I would say that through research, learning about what's actually going on, and almost affirming that they could do it will definitely help with that. So what I would suggest for someone who is actually serious about trying to go vegan, and it's really just the willpower that's haunting them and not making them go make that extra step, I would say almost journal, probably journaling out what's holding them back. Because journaling is a great way to perform not only just shadow work, but doing programming of your subconscious mind type work too. like journaling what's on your mind, what's holding me back, what happened in my past, why do I feel like I can't make this hum? And when you actualize what's on your mind through journaling, you'll see, that's something I need to work on myself, because that's not an animal problem, that's a personal problem. So you're almost developing your own sense of compassion in that way. I would say, once again, doing your own research, because the conditioning of what we think about animals, but also things like, I am compassionate. I have respect for beings other than myself. I can eat plants to sustain myself. Things like that, which will help them believe that they can do it. It's very possible, once again, if they have the resources, but that they can totally do it. They have the capacity to do it. They possibly could even affirm that they have the resources to do it. So it's almost trying to convince your own self, I can do this, regardless of what other people have told me, regardless of what society has told me. I can do this. I want to do this.
Okay, thank you. And I totally agree. I in working with folks over the last 10 years that I've been doing this work, and people coming through the programs that we set up, the vegan education programs, the people who are most likely to actually be successful at transitioning for good are the people who sort of come in a positive mindset, who are excited about this, who are there to learn information and to get more, to get something out of the experience. Oftentimes the people who come in and they're skeptics and they're just, sitting there waiting for something that they can disagree with, and that kind of thing. Oftentimes, those are the folks who, I'll follow folks later on down the road to see how they're doing, and they haven't stuck to it. So I think there's a lot to what you're saying. So can you go more into what shadow work is and the benefit of doing that kind of work on yourself?
Sure. So as I said before, shadow work, I would say plainly, is making the hidden not hidden. It is what's deep in our psyche, the things that we lock away because it's too painful to feel. Because really, we don't want to think about our darkness because it's painful. So it is the process of, I wouldn't want to say digging up your past, but it's acknowledging how your darkness has helped you grow. Taking a deeper look at our past pain, our suppressed emotions, our experiences, our childhood, anything that has been perceived as bad, because there's no real good or bad, it's just how we perceive it. All the things that we perceive as bad and how they've affected us as adults. Because a lot of our behaviors now are really seriously directly affected or directly linked to how we were raised, or our ideologies as a child, or even what happened to us yesterday. A lot of the things that we perceive as dark experiences have a lot to do with how we behave as adults. And when we acknowledge that, we cannot let those things upset us anymore. We won't have as much of a harsh emotional reaction to memories that we've been hiding for so long. So let's say that I am driving and I have road rage, which is not all the way not true. But when I'm on the road and I'm upset because there's some traffic, traffic is already annoying. But most of the time it's probably because I was taught to not be patient as a child. I was taught that in order to deal with my anger and in order to express my anger, I have to yell, or that yelling at somebody knowing that they can't hear me is going to make them go faster. A lot of those things, they might seem like small little things that we just do in the moment that makes us blow up, but they have a lot to do with how we deal with our darkness. And if we do not make that part conscious, because our shadow work is really subconscious mind programming in itself, because you are unlearning the shame and guilt you've been taught to have about these experiences. A lot of people blame themselves for what happens to them, and that is absolutely false. We've been blamed for crying when we're sad about something. We've been blamed for being abused in some sort of way. Like, we've been blamed for, and what shadow work does is to make everything we've suppressed no longer a dark memory. And it's also a way for us to decolonize how we see the light and the dark. Because, you know, once again, shadow work sounds scary, and I totally understand that with people. Really, I wish that it was just called dealing with your mess, because that's really what shadow work is. And when we try to break down the barriers of what light and dark means, not only will we honestly probably somewhat dismantle anti-Blackness, but we'll realize that the light is not all there is. The universe is literally like over 90% darkness, dark matter. You know, the sun and, you know, the stars, those are the things that illuminate it. So the light is not all there is. Light has the rap of being like positive or, you know, uplifting, and that's all well and good. That's totally valid. But our darkness is not all just about sadness. It's just how we feel. It's us being brutally honest with ourselves. It's us not blaming ourselves for what happened to us. And all those things that we perceive as bad really were just ways to help us grow. And a lot of us will agree that we wouldn't change any of the situations that's happened to us because we are who we are now. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So in short, shadow work is just dealing with your mess. It's uncomfortable work, but is proving that your darkness is not coming back to haunt you. It's just trying to show you what you've been hiding.
So here is a loaded question. Why is shadow work, why would you say that shadow work is important for Black people's healing specifically?
That's a great question. I think that it helps us separate the violence we experience in the world and what has personally happened to us to make us better people in our lives. So not a lot of people have the combined oppression that, you know, that people who look like us do, or any types of things like that. But the violence we experience, we almost blame ourselves for it because of global anti-Blackness. And it's almost as if we feel like we deserve it. So I feel like shadow work helps us realize that our personal issues, what we've experienced on our own, is not something that we deserve. It was something that was made for our character development. And that's not saying that the violence we experience in the world is for character development. It's just more that we do not deserve the abuse we've dealt with in our personal lives because of what the media has told the world about Black people. So in the healing process for us, we are seeing that what has happened to us was not our fault, was once again something that was for our growth, and is most likely something that's not happening to us in our present moment. Unfortunately, in dealing with our own personal problems, we have to deal with, once again, global anti-Blackness. But also in doing that for ourselves, we are seeing that everything that people have been telling the world about Black people is a lie. We're unlearning all the, you know, making fun of our skin, our hair, our body sizes, the way we talk, our culture, or just consuming our culture and then, you know, thinking that we're trash at the end of it. But when we do shadow work, we are empowering ourselves to believe that we deserve joy, we deserve happiness, we deserve authentic lives, we deserve to be happy and, you know, connecting with each other, uniting, and that what everybody else has to say isn't a factor in that. So with us healing, we are unlearning societal's obsession with hating things that are dark or, you know, Black. This is actually a very similar topic, thinking about shadow work. We are unlearning what we perceive as darkness in our own being. But in doing that, we're also seeing that Black is not bad. Black is beautiful. Dark isn't bad. Dark is just what is. People are dark. We experience darkness. We are from the darkness. It is not something that is unnatural. It is just something we've been taught to be bad. So it's almost as if we're doing double healing with shadow work. We are breaking down our traditions. We're trying to decode language that makes us feel guilty for just surviving and just existing. But we are also seeing how our personal problems have shaped us into the awesome people we are today. So it really feels like we're healing from the inside and out, if that makes sense.
You know, you talking about global anti-Blackness brought something to mind for me. And it brought a question to mind for me. I think it was really important to talk about how Black people can use, shadow work and programming of the conscious mind to do this healing. But in speaking about global anti-Blackness, we have to all acknowledge that this is not just a Black people thing, right? So, every culture across, the globe has some form of anti-Blackness. It seems like every culture across the globe has some
Literally.
form of anti-Blackness, right, built in. So, like every known language on the planet right now has a word that that they use for the N-word, right?
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually been looked at. Like all the cultures on the planet have a word, a derogatory word that means people who are darker skin, darker
Wow.
complexion, right?
It's a shame.
I'm sure that some of the folks who are from other ethnic backgrounds who are watching this right now can think of like what the word is in their culture, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, there's just this really pervasive, just sort of negative connotation that is attached to darkness or being darker. I was wondering, can this type of shadow work be effective for people who aren't Black to try to counteract some of the anti-Blackness that they have been programmed with? So for instance, like these affirmations that you were talking about, saying those affirmations to themselves, not because they want to heal the ravages that come with being Black, but because they want to counteract what has been programmed into them about Blackness.
Oh, absolutely. Honestly, I feel that shadow work at its core is social justice work in a way. It's really just nitpicking all the traditions we've been, taught as children, and seeing that this isn't right, because it really does come down to light and dark. So I feel like shadow work, not only with just affirmations and meditation, it's basically just really just looking at how darkness is just what it is. It's darkness isn't bad. Darkness might not even necessarily seem like a good thing, but we just have to let things be. They just are. And I feel like with shadow work, people who aren't Black, non-Black people can use that as a way to help people unlearn traditions. And I don't also just want to say that all traditions are bad, but at least have traditions that include everyone, traditions that uplift everyone, and traditions that do not praise hatred and the acts of hatred on other people that are different than them. So I feel like, and then on top of that, shadow work will help you realize why you're so hateful towards these beings, why you're so hateful towards these humans. Why do I really feel like darkness is bad? Is it from what I was taught, or do I actually have a horrible bias about these people based on experience, based on what I've seen in the media, based on blah, blah, blah? It really helps you analyze not only why you feel that way, but analyze why the world feels that way. And in turn, that'll hopefully encourage others to spread that knowledge. Hey, just letting you know, when you say those words, do you really understand what you're saying by that? What do you really think about these people? Is it what you've been taught, or is it how you deeply feel? It just has you critically thinking about what this really means. And when you break down what darkness actually means, you'll realize that, once again, it just is. So I think that shadow work will really, really help with non-Black people, especially in their possible allyship, to normalize decolonial tactics and just letting people know this is just not how it is. We've been taught to believe that. So really just analyze how you feel about these people truly. Because honestly, it really just sucks that before we open our mouths, people feel some type of way about us. But when they see us at our core, they realize that we're just like everyone else. We're people. So that's also what I feel shadow work does for us. It just shows you that everyone's a person. Everyone just does what they do and just wants to go to where they want to go. And we have no say in how they live or the fact that they're living.
That's powerful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Another thing that has occurred to me as you've been talking is a personal issue that I have. So I was just going to take this time to ask you to fix me
Okay.
on the conference. No,
I got you.
no, but I mean, this is actually like a deep-seated thing for me that I would have to do some real work on, and maybe I will come and see you about this because,
Please.
but it's also something that I've seen a lot of people on social media talking about and experiencing as well, and that is this fear of insects. And yes, and so and especially as a vegan and as an advocate for animals, it has been such a conflict for me that there are certain insects that I experience like a very strong deep-seated fear of as soon as I see them, right? So for
Right.
some people it might be like bees, for some
Mhm.
people it might be like cockroaches, for other people it might be spiders, right? But so many people have this like serious, deep fear that goes, I mean, so far as to make you feel like you want to run away, or even worse, like you want to just stomp them and kill them. You just
Yes.
want to stomp them out of existence, right? um, and so it's just like I feel like that has to, even in my own life, and I won't even speak to what the insects are that I have this fear of, because I just I experienced an awful lot of guilt about
Mm.
the fact that I have these fears and this negative reaction to these living beings, right? So on the one
Mhm.
hand, if I see a cute little kitten, I'm just like, oh, it's so cute, but then if I see this particular insect, I'm like, get it away from me. Well, what's really the difference, honestly,
Right.
other than whatever is happening inside me that is
Yes.
causing me to have this reaction? So how could someone, because like me and so many other people, start to resolve that deep-seated fear and anxiety around certain insects?
First of all, I'm just gonna have to first. I have the same type of fear of something, but I'm gonna have to acknowledge you said great keywords. You said resolve and reactions. The thing is, we have to acknowledge that there's a problem. Like a lot of people don't even know they feel some type of way until they have a harsh emotional reaction. So we have to be as conscious as possible of how we're feeling about certain things in the moment. I guess you could say that's like being present, and that's not that easy. But when you're present enough, you'll realize, ooh, I felt this way about something. What was that about? And then you can begin the analyzing process. And when you're resolving it, I love that word too, because truly nothing will totally be resolved because you might still have a reaction, but you could in that process, you'll unlearn why this is so scary. So I have an example myself, and I will say the insect that I have a lot of trauma with is ants. Okay, so I don't step on or clap on animals. I don't do, insects or bugs. I don't do that. But growing up, I would always stay in my grandma and my mom's side of the family are from the dirty South. And my grandma stayed in a trailer in the middle of nowhere in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So there's gonna be ants and there's gonna be dragonflies that are the size of pterodactyls. That's just how it is there. So as a child, the ants that are black would bite you. So I have a lot of trauma with ants. And I will even bring another example. The other day on my deck, I saw ants, and there are ants everywhere swarming. I had to be conscious of my reaction to them to see if that's still a problem. But if I were to have a harsh emotional reaction, I would be like, ooh, like, where is that coming from? And when we analyze it, most of the time we have been taught that, bugs are beneath us because they're smaller, or bugs serve no purpose because they're so easy to be killed, or bugs are just pests, pesticides, pests. We just see them as pests, but for real, they've been here before us, and they actually serve a great purpose to our earth.
Yes.
They cultivate the soil. They're like little farmers, and regardless of what they can do for us, they have lives of their own that have nothing to do with us. They're allowed to exist. And I think a lot of the problems that we have is that we see them as nuisances for intruding in our privacy, intruding in our comfort. But what is our comfort? Is our comfort really that we don't want no bugs around? Because that's either number one, that's not going to happen. And number two, the earth is going to extra collapse, even though the earth will always be here. But the extra will be under a lot of fire if they didn't exist. So I think a lot of people need to analyze where they've been taught that insects, bugs, arachnids, why they're so scary. And maybe they had an experience. Okay, so if I had that experience, what did that experience teach me? And most of the times, it probably just taught us that we were in their way. Realistically, sometimes we're just in their way. You know, our houses are in their space. Our malls are intruding in their territory, and we get mad because they're climbing everywhere. Like, you know, this is their planet as much as it is ours. And if we can be comfortable with, you know, as vegans, having like animals roaming around and doing what they got to do, we also have to be considerate of how bugs, insects, arachnids, whatever, come into play, not only with our earth, but just respecting that they exist and just leave them alone. If that makes sense.
It does. It does. So there is work that a person can start to do to be able to resolve those emotional responses and like where that's coming from.
Absolutely.
Is it possible for the fear to go away? Have you ever heard of anybody who like were able to process through that kind of emotion to the point where like, oh, now I can pick up this insect that I was once horribly terrified of?
I'm very sure that happens. I'm very sure that happens all the time, because once again, the other day when I saw ants all over the place, I wasn't freaking out for the first time in a long time, because I still have that, like, you know, my heart still bumps. I still, like, you know, look in the side of my eye. It's a lot, but I don't always like to count on it, because I don't want people to think that healing is linear. It is a lifelong journey. We might work on our issues with bugs now, but we probably won't be truly resolved of it or truly respecting their existence until 3 years later. So it might feel like the end is never in sight, but we do have less emotional reactions to things. And that doesn't always mean that everything is solved or resolved. It just means that we're able to monitor how we're feeling in the moment and being present. So I would say that it could be anything. You know, everyone's journey is different, but it is definitely possible for people to be like, you know what, I was tripping. Let me pick up this bug right now. So yes, definitely possible.
Well, that would be great.
Yes, I feel you.
So I guess I wanted to sort of finish out the session by asking you what tips you would share with people in terms of releasing old destructive patterns and creating new positive and sustaining habits.
You know what? Of course, I'm going to say shadow work and programming the subconscious mind, but I'll say, like, the number one thing, as I mentioned previously, is being conscious that there's a problem, being conscious that you need to change, and also having the mindset, being willing to change. A lot of people know that they have a problem. They're not willing to change it. Not their fault. It just be like that sometimes, but people have to know when they're ready and ready to make those changes. But I always say journaling. It sounds very simple. Mostly anyone can do it, but journaling helps you, as I mentioned in a previous question, it really just helps you see what you're thinking. It helps you see what's on your mind that you've been hiding for a long time. And in that, you'll probably even read, like, you'll probably even have a journal entry. You know, we all have diaries. In our diary, we basically just word vomit. We're not being judged. We're not being criticized. We can write in, you know, bad punctuation, bad grammar, all types of things without anyone hunching over our shoulder and making us feel bad about it or shameful about it. So when you are journaling, most likely with the intent of, I want to change, you know, my behaviors. Why am I doing those things? You'll see, maybe I do this because of that. Oh, maybe I don't change because of that. Oh, maybe I could do something different because of that. And when you acknowledge that those things are happening, that's a part of your experience at the moment, because really you can't change things unless they're faced. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. So acknowledging that in your journal, you'll be like, whoa, like, what have I been doing my whole life? Once you do that, you can, I would even say, use subconscious mind programming tactics to develop a better practices or patterns in its place. So I would say using your intuition would be a great way to figure out what's good for you. Because we can get all the advice we want, but if it doesn't resonate with you, or if it doesn't serve you in any way, then it's almost useless. So when you're listening to your internal voice, making sure that you're feeling good, mind, body, and spirit, when you're listening to your internal voice, then you'll know what I can do to counteract those bad behaviors. I've been drinking a lot for the past 3 years. Now I'm finally acknowledging that it's a problem. What can I do in its place? Maybe I could cut back, a glass a day. Maybe I could, do it completely, cut it out completely and drink soda instead. All those types of things that would resonate with you deeply. So writing in a journal and listening to your internal voice to see what resonates for you, to create better and more positive patterns in the place of the old destructive habits.
So not only do you do amazing multimedia marketing with Afro-Vegan Society, you also coach people. Like, you help people through these kinds of to resolve and work through these kinds of issues. How would somebody, I mean, I know a lot of the people who follow you are going to be watching this, so they already know how to find you. But like, if somebody just kind of stumbled across this Q&A, how would they find you so that they can start connecting with you about this?
I would definitely take a look at my Instagram, The Soulful Veganista. I haven't updated certain other platforms, but I'm doing better at that. But I'm definitely on Instagram. I'm on Facebook as well as Jamila Anahata, but I also have my Soulful Veganista page that's been kind of flagged right now, so I've been limited on my actions. But I'm also on Twitter. I'm trying to be better at Twitter. Twitter is hard, y'all. Help me. I also have a website that's not all the way updated just because I've been busy with work and just trying, my move, all those types of things, but I'll be back at that soon. But also I'm on TikTok at _ The Soulful Veganista. And I'm also making more YouTube videos on my YouTube, The Soulful Veganista. So basically just The Soulful Veganista all around, y'all. Just Google it and just click on the link.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share some of your expertise and understanding of these spiritual practices, and talking about overall wellness of mind, body, and spirit, because there are so many people out here who need and are thirsty for this information. And so obviously the Afro-Vegan Society wants to fulfill needs across every spectrum. And this is a big part of why we're here. So again, thank you so much. You are amazing, of course, and it is just such a credit to Afro-Vegan Society that you are a part of this family. And I cannot wait to come and get my session.
Yes, girl. Thank you so much
on these issues.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you so much for that. I'm so happy I could speak today, and I'm so happy to be a part of the AVS family. So it's my pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in. Click to watch more sessions.